My name is Eli Engleberg. I'm the co-founder and CEO of SellerSnap. I was introduced to selling on Amazon when I joined FeedAdvisor in 2014. FeedAdvisor were one of the first to offer an algorithmic repricing solution. And in 2016, together with my partners Yuval Kaufman and Joshua Beam, we founded SellerSnap, a game theory-based repricing and analytics solution for Amazon sellers. So what I'm going to do is do a quick overview of a few concepts that have been mentioned before, but I think it's important to put them into context of what we're going to talk about. And then we'll talk about repricing. So the buy box has been mentioned, the all-important buy box. We estimated between 80 and 90% of sales come from within the buy box. And there's, like it was said here, it's Amazon are consumer-facing, and the idea is to give the buyer the best experience. And to do that, Amazon have an algorithm, and it takes into account various things. But I think the critical ones to understand that are important for repricing and show why repricing can have an impact is that the lowest price doesn't necessarily win the buy box. It's very, probably the best example is FBA, and today's self-fulfilled Prime can win the buy box at a higher price than an FBM seller that's comparable on the same listing. Another thing is that your positive feedback rank or feedback count are not as important as some people think. So it's not uncommon for a seller with 80% positive feedback to win the buy box at the same price as someone who has 98% positive feedback. And also, don't quote me on it, but Amazon, it seems like Amazon's algorithm also promotes sometimes Amazon's agenda in terms of how competitive the marketplace is. And we've seen this in the last holiday season of November, December 2017, where all of a sudden sellers that usually could compete, win the buy box by just dropping a cent, all of a sudden they had to drop 50 cents to have the algorithm, Amazon's algorithm, switch the buy box over. And also, it's a piece of software, so it has bugs and it sometimes has performance issues, and the result is it sometimes seems a little bit unfair, but it is what it is. Another thing is Amazon sometimes suppress the buy box. Like we said, they're all about the consumer experience, and if Amazon see that the best offer on Amazon is still not attractive enough, they can't remove the listing, but they won't endorse one of the offers and say you should buy this. And just a quick example of this is the product here that's the lowest offer on Amazon is $7.99 plus $4.99 shipping, and you could buy it in Bed Bath & Beyond for $7.99 and free shipping. So generally, as a buyer, if you go to Amazon and there's no buy box, look elsewhere because it means that there's a better offer out there. Competitive versus private label. So private label is just a subset of items that don't have competition. It can be your own label. It could be that you're the only distributor. Or that what some sellers do is they bundle to get out of the fierce competition. They bundle a product together with some other things, or they do multi-packs, a pack of 3, pack of 6, whatever. And the difference is, so a competitive product is a product where there's at least 2 sellers competing for the buy box. And when that's not the case, when you are selling your own label, winning the buy box is all of a sudden no longer a factor because you're going to be in the buy box anyway. And to reprice that is a completely different story. You can spend hours talking on that. From our experience, the biggest challenge is the lack of good sales data to make efficient price decisions in real time. It's just not. Most of these products, you don't sell, your private label, you don't sell 5,000 a day, that you can actually change the price a little bit and see the effect on demand. What we currently do with this is we allow to change price based on related products, because like Greg mentioned the garlic press or yoga mat. If you're selling your own brand, your product page and everything is still very important, but you're also competing on price with similar products. And linking your price and making sure that you're competitive on price with comparable products is another way to go around it. But everything I'm going to be talking from this point on is relevant only for competitive products and the buy box. So reprices, ever since Amazon opened the marketplace to third-party sellers, price changes are critical to running a successful store. The reason for that is, like was mentioned before, if you're not in the buy box, you're not going to sell. And to win the buy box, the only thing you can do in the short term is to lower your price. In the long term, like it was mentioned before, it's important that you have the best sellers rank, that you keep all your KPIs great, that you ship on time and don't have a lot of returns and such. But that doesn't help you in the short term. It doesn't help you to win the buy box in the next hour. So left with that, another question is why are repricers so popular on Amazon? And it's not just because Amazon is the largest marketplace. There's a few reasons for it. First is the catalog system, or the ASIN, the Amazon Standard Identifying Number, which organizes the product in this certain way. It's very different from eBay, for example, where if you sell someone, you have to create your own product page. Another thing is a very good and extensive API, application programming interface, that Amazon provided allow these software solutions to connect to Amazon, get a lot of data, and also be able to change prices and other things. And the last is, again, the very important buy box, which allows you to pretty effectively estimate success or estimate your sales, because you know if you're in the buy box you're going to sell, and makes it really ideal to apply repricing. To the best of my knowledge, one of the first companies to recognize this was ChannelMax quite a few years back, offering a simple rule-based repricer to do exactly that. And what a rule-based repricer does is it allows you for every listing to specify how you're going to compete. So a simple example, let's say you did your research and you know that if you are 5 cents, you drop 5 cents below the lowest price, that'll guarantee you win the buy box. You would set your rule to be, beat the lowest price by 5 cents, and you're done. And in the beginning, that was pretty good, because if your competitors are repricing manually, there's no way they're going to keep up with this. Trouble is, it didn't take long for sellers to understand this. And then the next step was, if you and your competitor are both using a rule-based repricer, and you're both setting it to beat the lowest price by 5 cents, well, it's not difficult to see how this very immediately turns into a price war. And if you sell something for $30, in a couple of hours, you're down to $25, and your profit margin is gone. This resulted in the repricing solutions becoming a bit, increasingly advanced and applying all sorts of internal logic. You'll hear a lot of words being thrown around: artificial intelligence and machine learning, big data, data science, and such. But the idea is, again, to try to work around this simple rule-based solution and avoid these price wars. So rule-based repricers, they are good for something. First of all, they're cheap. Amazon included in Seller Central their own free repricing software, which is definitely something to start with, and it's better than not repricing at all. And also, they're easy to understand because you know what they're going to do. If you set it to match lowest price, you can just monitor and see if it's doing what you want, yes or no. Trouble is, it's labor intensive. First of all, you have to do your own research and set up the repricing rules for every product you sell. And depending on how dynamic the competition is in your specific category, it will require a lot of updates. So what worked, the rule that worked last week doesn't necessarily work this week. They're still good, and like I said, if you're just getting started, again, on competitive products, use at least a simple repricer, even if it's Amazon's free repricer. And we're going to see that next. In some situations, just applying a simple rule is really the optimal solution. You don't need anything fancier. Yeah, so I hope not to bore you to death, but this is the best, couldn't come up with a better idea of how to explain what's going on. And so a few words on the data we're going to see. All the sellers that appear here have won the buy box, or in this time frame, or a few days, at least a few days prior to this. This is real data we collect, the repricer collects for products that are sold by our customers. And you can learn quite a lot from these examples. So if you see the green seller not using a repricer, and he's non-relevant, he's not going to get the buy box ever in this scenario. Remember, he did get the buy box probably a few days before, but he's now out of the competition. The light blue seller is using a repricer because you see he goes up and down, but he's again not relevant, probably because his floor price is set too high, which as a side note demonstrates the importance of having the data and having a solution that alerts you to say, okay, listen, this product, you need to change your setup because your floor price makes you non-competitive. Then the buy box price is at $5.16, and there's quite a few sellers. They're all FBA sellers, by the way. The yellow seller is again using a repricer, and that repricer, to very little effect, is trying to pull the price up. But again, that's not going to be successful because there's 3 other sellers, and there's no way to influence price in this situation. The opposite of that also applies. If someone were stupid enough to lower the price a little bit, the result would be just a price decrease for everyone with the same situation. So really here, setting your price at $5.16 under these circumstances is the best you can do. And if seller D would ask me, I'd say just apply Amazon's free repricer, set it to match the buy box price, and you're done. And it's free, and you're doing much better definitely than he is now. Unfortunately, life is not that simple. And here is a situation of 3 sellers competing and using repricing solutions, but you see that it's very difficult. There's no simple rule here that if you apply it, you can guarantee that you're going to do well, because it's all over the place. Which brings us to smart repricers, if you want to call them that. So the first thing is how aggressive are you going to be in winning the buy box? A lot of repricing solutions say, well, we'll make sure you'll always win the buy box at the highest price. I think it's pretty clear now that if you try to win the buy box 100% of the time, that'll, again, for a competitive product, will always result in a price war. That is okay in certain cases if that's your strategy and you know you can beat the other sellers on price, you're willing to go that low, and it might drive the other sellers out of the market. Depends. But if that isn't your strategy, if you're either don't have a clear advantage, or for various other reasons, your vendor doesn't like you to drop the price that much, or you're looking at trying to share the buy box and trying to do that at the best possible way in the best possible price. So what would you expect from a smart repricer? So one of the things is at least you'd have a repricer automatically find the highest price at which you can win. Because, like I said, if you're not in the buy box, you need to drop price, but by how much? Instead of doing that research manually on every product you sell, a repricer, a smart repricer, should be able to detect that price automatically. After doing that, the next challenge is to see, okay, what kind of buy box share am I entitled to, and what should I go for in order to keep this balance between being too aggressive and driving the price down, and not selling and not getting buy box. And ideally, a repricer, a smart repricer, would be able to analyze the marketplace and know and take into account the effect that your price changes have on the other sellers, and to react to price changes of other sellers. So next slide is a good example of, actually the final slide before lunch, is a good example of everything I think I've been talking about. And before that, I'll say a few words about game theory repricing. Most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the concept of game theory. It's well known and widely used in economics. And when we started to think about a repricing solution, it's actually interesting that a good friend of mine who's a biologist, when I talked to him about the problem, he said, oh, it's a classic game theory problem. And in many cases, it's true. And from a higher level, if you think about it, if each seller applies a selfish short-term strategy of, I want to be in a buy box, if I'm not there, I'll drop my price, the result in many cases is non-beneficial, not just to other sellers, but to yourself as well. And alternatively, applying what's called in game theory a cooperative strategy, can result in a win-win situation. Now there's two, and this also, by the way, demonstrates the changes in competition, over even hours and not necessarily days. So there's this first section here. You see that the blue seller, seller A, is not repricing, and he's priced too high. He's not getting buy box. Seller C, the gray seller, is also not repricing, but he is getting buy box, and the reason he is because seller B, applying game theory here, is deliberately sharing the buy box with him. You see, like wins the buy box, but then it goes up and allows the other seller to win the buy box. And the idea behind this is that in the long term, seller C has inventory, and if he sees he's not selling and not winning the buy box, he'll manually drop his price. Once he does that, the price is down, and because he's not repricing, to get it back up is going to be near impossible. So it's kind of a deliberate trick or strategy to say, okay, I'll artificially share the buy box with him, even though in the short term you could win 100% of the buy box because seller C is not repricing. Then, at a certain point in time, all of a sudden, seller A wakes up and he applies a repricer. Now, first of all, if you remember what I said, this is a clear indication that he didn't find the highest winning price because he dropped significantly on this item, where to win the buy box, he'd only have to be 1 cent below the lowest price, and he didn't. He dropped down to way below that. And he applies a simple rule to beat lowest price by 1 cent. We see this. Now, the game theory repricer waits, first of all, because remember, it's a manual setting. Someone here switched on his repricer or went and changed something. And you want to give it a little bit of time. Maybe he'll find out that, hey, why did I drop so much? I can go back up. But he didn't, and then the repricer reacts. And it goes into a price war, and you see the downwards trend. Because to get buy box, seller A drops 1 cent, gets the buy box. In order to get the buy box from him, you need to match him or beat his price a little bit. Now, just using a rule-based solution here would result in this downwards trend just continuing, and it will stop when either both of them or one of them reach their floor price. And it can end at, I don't know, somewhere at $5 maybe. We don't know. Oh, sorry, at $15. But what the strategy here is smart enough to do is after it achieves a high enough buy box share, it pulls the price back up. It goes to a price that's a little bit lower than seller C, because seller C now, because of the behavior of seller A, you don't have an influence a lot about what seller C will do. Because if we go above seller C will still not get buy box because seller A is always going to remain aggressive. But the price goes up, and you see that seller A reacts with a price increase like you would expect. And it doesn't go all the way up, and this is, again, because he set his max price, funny enough, to that low point. Right? If he was willing to go up further, it would be better for everyone, but he doesn't. It's out of your control. And then it goes into these cycles of jumping up and down, and the average buy box price in the end is $15.35, sharing a buy box around 50% between seller B and seller A. Now, in general, this is not the best situation, and it would be better to share the buy box way higher than that. But that's not your decision. Seller A is doing whatever he wants. But in this case, the result of applying this strategy is better for both, right? It's not just seller B, but seller A as well is getting buy box at a much higher price than he would if we just continue this price war. So just a few words. What I hope you take away from this session is, first of all, it's probably not a big shock coming from me, but if you're selling competitive products on Amazon, use a repricer, even if it's Amazon's free repricer or there's really cheap rule-based repricers, $25 a month or so. Rule-based repricers are good to start with, and for some sellers, depending on how their competitive landscape, what their competitive landscape looks like, might also be the optimal solution. If that's the case, then it's a good choice and it's cheap. Advanced repricers generally cost more, and the question if they justify their price tag really depends on what they can do for you. And here it depends a little bit also about the size of your business, because even if a smart repricer does fantastic and increases your profit by 10%, if you're only making $2,000 a month, that's not a lot. It wouldn't justify the price tag. But if you're making $50,000 a month, it's very easy. It's a no-brainer. So that's pretty much it. I hope you found it interesting and educational. I'm going to be here the rest of the day for any questions, but obviously we have time, right? How much time do we have?
Yeah, we have time for questions.
Yeah, okay. So if anyone has questions. No? Yes.
So as you're doing your repricing tool and you're using, I get that that's the purchase price, but what happens to the sell cost? How does that impact it?
Do you mean
The cost? Cost of
your cost?
Your cost.
Well, your cost, okay, any repricer works within a range that you as a seller define, where you, most importantly, have to decide your minimum price. Now, when you go to decide what your minimum price is, you're going to take into account your cost and any good tool, and we offer that as well. Pull in as much data from Amazon, so you have your estimated fees, and your you can input your other additional costs, maybe shipping it to Amazon's warehouse if it's FBA and so forth. And you have, in the end, you have your total cost. You need to know what kind of markup you want on that, and that's how you set your minimum. And ideally, your pricer would do its job to get you more than that.
When you have the brand owner and resellers both competing, how much preference, if any, do you see going to the brand owner?
None really. It depends. Well, first of all, it's an interesting case. I think what happens a lot of times in these cases is these resellers are usually very aggressive on price. Like they want to, they got some inventory somewhere and they're selling it. We haven't seen, again, I might be wrong, we haven't seen that Amazon give any sort of, they don't care if you're the brand owner, so it depends what kind of seller you are. So if you're a very good seller, very high ranked, and you do, FBA or self-fulfilled prime, you're going to win the buy box. But if not, then it's just a same competition as anywhere else. That's it? Yes.
As a brand owner, can Amazon help enforce MAP pricing if you're selling to, if you have a B2B, kind of distribution network for your products?
Yeah, Amazon do the opposite. They don't enforce MAP. They allow, and it's actually less and less, but they allow you to do MAP masking. If you see a lot of times that there won't be a price until you click Add to Cart. So Amazon do allow you to say, okay, my MAP price is my MAP is $15, and if I set my price at $14, then they won't show it, and it'll only show the price if you click on Add to Cart. But that's not as it's been limited to very little categories now. But Amazon want to be competitive. They don't care about MAP.
Right, but like as a brand owner, if you have your brand registry set up and through distribution somehow, some people start selling your product at a bottom dollar cost. For you as a brand owner, do you have the authority to go into Amazon in that sense and kind of report them for whatever reason? Is there any leverage?
Not that I'm aware. What we can do, and what you can do in any data provider, and we have that as well, is to, first of all, kind of look for these people. So look on your listings and say, okay, which product is being sold below MAP? And then, again, to the best of my knowledge, the way to enforce this is go over how they got this, and if it's a distributor, then you won't sell anymore. Amazon, I don't think Amazon factor into it. They don't care. It's not between you and Amazon. It's between.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sure. Yes, lunch. Okay.